faster grow it. From the Stash Podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Stash Blend. I've been using Stash Blend for over a year now, and it's awesome. One of the things that I really like is that it saves me money. It's a whole bunch of different inputs in one. So I no longer have to go out there and buy a silica bottle, then a separate seaweed bottle, beneficial bacteria, then a separate one for mycorrhizal fungi. All of that plus more is in this one blend. Go to stashblend.com to learn more about it, and I also have a link down in the YouTube description section below.
And a huge shout out to AC Infinity. AC Infinity's got a brand new bowl trimmer, and you're going to want to get your hands on this. I harvested an entire pound in just a couple hours. I didn't have a sore back. It was easy on my feet, and boy, was it fast. Don't hesitate. Go to acinfinity.com, use promo code THESTASH15, save a few dollars off at checkout, and thank them for being a sponsor of today's video. And that's additives, using additives in your garden. What kind of additives are you using? How are you using them? And are they working for you? And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, because all three of us grow differently. And I know when we apply the conversation to you guys as well, we all grow differently, but yet there's an additive for everyone, it seems. And there's bottles and bags and all kinds of sorts of things. I think we should talk about it. So
yeah, dude. Well, and like I will say first here, people, if you've seen me enough, you know I'm not going to be a Billy Mays type of cat and just be like, but wait, there's Stash Blend on every single thing. But it definitely was a lot of inspiration making the Stash Blend, is wanting an additive that wasn't just like one of 50. And the thing is a lot of these things are extremely important though. They're extremely important, you know, the one of 50. So if you can't put them together, you're going to have a lot of bottles or a lot of bags. Definitely. So now, Chris, you and I have been doing a lot more of the organic inputs. P, you've been sticking with the bottles. I think eventually, just like we talked tent talk, I know you were like, nah, open space. I was like, and now tent gang till you DIE. I love it. Now, in this case, have you noticed a difference using the complete line with Ventana? Because you're using support and structure, which are going to be additives there. You've got the silicon and the silicone. Never can say it proper. And then,
I haven't added silicone yet. But.
And then you've got the your calcium and your magnesium, which I notice more and more people aren't saying CalMag as much. They're separating it, which I love to see that.
I think maybe it's because we dunked on them. Maybe with the military grade. Who knows? Who knows?
I don't
know. The running joke is that CalMag fixes everything, and I think people are starting, including your marriage. So people are starting to figure out that we're trying to be specific. What are you lacking? Is it calcium? Is it magnesium? Is it the both of them? Or are you just missing, you know, maybe your PK boosters or your sugars and so on and so forth? I have always used an entire line. Before VPS, I was using, DP. And before them, I was using Future Harvest. And before them, I was using Green Planet. And before them, I was using GH. So, you know, I've always used the entire base along with every bottle after that, because I understand that, you know, you're not going to always get everything from the base. So I've continued with that. The only time that's changed is now that I'm running the blend. I just run the base nutrients with the blend, and that's working for me now. So that's how I apply it using, you know, synthetic nutrients. But I'm curious to how you guys are, you know, getting additives in there, going organic. Are you just relying on Build-A-Soil to provide that, or are you finding your own measures?
So for a while I'm not using it as much now, but I was using parboiled rice hulls to kind of add a little extra silica into my mix, which was nice, and also not using perlite. So that was essentially an additional that I was adding into it. And that was one that was like a 2-for-1, the twofer we'll call it. You know, I'm not using just one bag to be able to give me that additive. I'm able to have something that's working as both my in my media, and then as the additive itself. Sorry, I'm breaking something up over here. The organics, the visuals are pretty heavy today, but the biggest thing for me is seeing when I don't use those, the difference of the plant. Just like when you have better quality smoke or better quality anything, when you go back to the worst quality, you really notice the difference. And for me, I really saw the flimsy, thin wispiness when I was just going base nutrients and I had no silica added. There was nothing strengthening the cell walls, nothing making it so I can have that proper LST without it just being kind of wonky and bendable. You know, I like a little bit of bark to it, a little bit of bark with my bite. Now, you guys, I'm sure you use, obviously, with silica being in the mix that you're using, Chris, you're using the craft blend, right, from Build a Soil. Same as me? Yeast?
Yeah, Build a Soil Craft Blend. I was using Kiss Organics Nutrient Pack is what I've been using recently. So those are like blends of different amendments all into one, organic. And yeah, I mean, as far as like, we're kind of a little bit all over the place. As far as like silica, you mentioned that.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Are you adding anything extra? Are you adding the parboiled rice hulls? Are you, I mean, not with the stash blend, obviously, you were good there, but prior to that, what were you adding?
Well, prior to that, I was using bottled nutrients and then adding in silica, right? So, you know, a lot of people, there's so much information about silica. I remember I was part of Utah State University, their cultivation program there with Dr. Bruce Bugby, and he has like an hour and 15-minute video on silica. And that one was really eye-opening for me because just the amount of studies that have been done surrounding silica and how beneficial it actually is. So it's really with that plant that we all know and love. It's non-essential, right? So you don't actually need it in order to get through the grow. But with other plants, you know, like diatoms, horsetails, it is an essential element for the plant. But with medicinal plants, you know, it has a whole bunch of benefits: resistance to disease, resistance to lodging, which is like falling over, resistance to insects, resistance to metal toxicities, resistance to salt stress, resistance to drought stress. So it's a very long list of benefits with studies that have been done to kind of back up those claims. And one of the more important ones that I have seen is, it was really eye-opening because you can actually see the difference in trichome development. So there are actually pictures of an electron microscope zooming into a trichome, a couple different trichomes. One of the plants was no silica, and then one of the plants was fed silica. And the actual trichome structure is a lot more thicker. It seems to be more robust. So it's actually having a direct impact on trichomes. And that's when I was like, man, this is probably one of the more beneficial ones to add, additives to add in, especially when growing medicinal plants. You know what I mean? So
I didn't even know
I think
that.
it should be in everybody's garden. And I think there was some also misinformation about when it should be used. Some people have commented on my videos in the past and like, oh, cut it off in flower. You definitely do not want to have it in flower. However, you know, you hear the otherwise. It's safe throughout the whole grow. And in flower, it's arguably like the most important, because going back to that trichome development. So yeah, but people use it all different ways as far as application rates and when they apply it.
And I think it's a prime example. I mean, I didn't realize that one with the trichome strength or the difference of the structure. And that'd be huge for those who are into any sort of extracts. Those trichome types and structure is massive for getting what you want in terms of yield and the proper terpenes and getting exactly what you're looking for in that cultivar. But people overlook, I think, a lot of these additives because they're not mandatory. These aren't things that you need necessarily. But my example of clearly organic talk, shroom talk a little bit, was the fact that those things you don't notice until after you have a better version, until you implement that, and then you really can see that, oh, wow, look at the difference in the same cultivar. It's hard when you jump to the next cultivar. Like be prime example, the ones you were dealing with recently that you had to bounce back with, those were new, correct? Those were started from bean?
Yeah.
So you couldn't necessarily see a difference between adding this or adding that, or seeing that potentially having issues adding something more into that because it's more finicky. I feel like the best way to start with additives is start low and slow. And it would be, again, that's why I mentioned silica, is because that's something I feel like is essential. It's very essential. There's other stuff that helps, but that's definitely one that's synthetic, organic, doesn't matter. I feel like everyone needs to implement that beyond their NPK.
This is something that's not discussed enough. You know, when you go into a, say your grow store, or you go into anything, are you licking that right now, Rob? Because I can hear that.
Can you?
Yeah.
I got
There's
that
no
tongue, baby. It's the
sound
lips and the tongue.
cancellation in this
ASMR.
whatsoever. Yeah,
You like that?
I can. Our other program, cancels everything. Yeah, not this. I could hear everything. Anyways, this is something that's not discussed enough when it comes to walking into a grow store and trying to figure it out. You know, when you're present, and I'm not going to throw any brand under the bus. This is not my intention here, but you'll figure it out real quick. When you walk into a grow store and you are overwhelmed with colors, beautiful women, big, huge pictures of buds, and it says you need your phosphorus. You need big flower
PK
candy.
boosters.
You need but no one knows what that. Well, no, I'm not gonna say no one knows, but it's when you walk into a store and you're trying to learn this information, everyone's discussing what their proprietary solution is, and that is in their extensive line. Everyone will provide a base nutrient, but then you can also, for more money, buy the additional bottles, the additional nutrients, and everyone's going to tell you need every single one of those bottles. Why? Well, because it needs sugars, it needs phosphoruses, it needs its potassium. It needs all of these elements at this particular time. And then you go to the next brand and they'll say, well, these guys say you need this much of this one, or maybe like a 2-4 or 228, or you know what I mean? Like it's all proprietary. So there's no real conversation around silica. There's no real conversation around CalMag. There's no real conversation around. They're just bottles with names on them, and it makes it kind of confusing to, I would argue, the beginner, that's trying to figure out what they need, when they're told you need all of these, you need all 15 of these to get the conversation, or to get the plant from A to B. And when in reality, you could probably break that down to a few less bottles if you understood which ones to use when and which ones are containing what. So I get it why there is either a hesitation to things like silica, or just a complete unknowing of its benefits. So it should be in every garden, but it's not.
Well,
Even
that's where
companies are sorry, just to finish, because some companies are just now adding silica to their line. That they've had lines out forever, but are now adding it in. So
I think that's the difference. I'm just going to say organic versus the synthetic side is like, you're getting most of these in the organic side. They're just not in a pretty package, and the name's not as easy to pop. It doesn't say, flower power or something crazy.
Right, which furthers my point.
It makes it a little harder for the person who's not trying to learn any of that stuff, who just wants the person who's following a recipe online versus trying to learn how to cook, we'll say. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where there is a time and a place for that. And that's, again, where shout out to Jeremy from Build the Soil. He's made it pretty easy to just grab a little thing, just like we have with the Stash Blend, to just grab a pack that has multiple things in it, and makes it more simple to add that into your mix versus having like 5, 6, 7, 8 more bottles. And that's where the essentials of what you need, of course, is going to be within your MPK and your macros. Your micros are definitely important as well. These additional additives, things that can help basically take what you're already putting in your plant and take it to the next level. I think that's where we touch into like beneficial bacteria and microbes, and like that's where that's like I feel like people look at it like CBD or like CalMag, same thing nowadays. Like everybody's got that, but a lot of people don't really realize why it's so beneficial and what the species are that they're getting. They're like, oh, it's got 30 or 40 or 50. It's like, but what's the benefit? Like, what's it doing for your plant? I think that's where understanding these things versus just looking at a bottle and knowing what the effect is, that's cool, but you can't learn how to do better and be more frugal unless you know what's in it.
Yeah, a couple more things about silica before we move on from that. I definitely wanted it to be we wanted it to be in Stash Blend because of what we had just talked about, how important it is. A couple other things to know: there's forms that the plant can uptake and forms that the plant can't uptake. Orthosilicic acid, monosilicic acid, those are forms that the plant can actually uptake, soluble. Silicon dioxide, the plant's not able to uptake. However, if you add that to the medium, the plant releases acids, right? Hydroxide. Also, microbes are releasing acids as well, which will actually convert that silica into a form that the plant can uptake. So I think that was important information to know, especially for the folks that are using silica in like a dry form. You know what I mean? Diatomaceous earth is something that is actually silica, something that we haven't even talked about yet. So yeah, it's in a lot of things that we don't necessarily really focus on or talk about much, and it is very, very beneficial for the plants.
And I think that's the argument of like somebody will be like, I don't need that. It's like, I don't need this crazy light, or I don't need these things. It's like, no, you don't. You can grow it. That's where the nickname, I think people call it, a weed, you know, like in the garden. And it makes sense because, you know, as soon as it rains, I've got so many weeds in my yard. It's ridiculous. I don't want them to grow, but somehow they still do. Are they thriving and doing great? No, but they're alive. You know, and I think it's a very comparable thing here where you can argue and say you don't need those things. No. But can you see a lot of benefits? Yes. And I think that's the key thing. Until you experience it, until you can digest that science, the name of the bottle or the bag or the input doesn't really matter. It's really understanding these things. And that's why we discuss this stuff where sometimes it seems a little boring when you get into stuff that's sleepy. But, you know, silica is one thing that is not discussed enough. And I do think people should look more into that if you're not implementing it in a full regimen.
It's gonna be great because a lot of people are training their plants a lot more today than they ever have been before, you know, and to have that flexibility with the plant, with the stems, silica is going to be a great benefit for that. You know, I train very, very heavy, and you know, I'm really asking for a lot out of the stems and you know, I'll give you the term of their outer, like what the cell walls. What is the layer on the stem? The bark.
Cell membrane.
Is a membrane?
Is that what you're referring to?
Maybe. But this is the point. I don't have to know. I don't have to know. I got people like you, and I got
Chris.
People like Dr. Bruce Bugby, and I got the internet,
George.
YouTube, that allows this to
George
happen
the
for me.
Jungle.
But I know that as somebody who trains very heavily, I'm going to rely very heavily on silica, and it works out. You know, it's something great.
Yeah.
Well, that's where you talk, Chris. You're smart.
I was going to say that, you know, you're talking about the cell walls and strengthening of the stalks, all that stuff. I think that's a good segue into CalMag. You know, calcium is one of those things that can contribute to strong cell walls, right? CalMag is an additive, which we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. A lot of us talk about CalMag. I think we have an entire episode on CalMag, but that is an additive, right? That is something that you add on top of your base nutrients. And a lot of people use it. I mean, I remember when I first started using it, it's because I saw calcium deficiency. And then somebody told me, hey, add in CalMag additive. And that got rid of it. But CalMag's calcium, magnesium, oftentimes there's iron in there as well. A lot of people don't really think about iron being in there as well, just because it's CalMag, is that's the name of it. But if you look on the back of the label, a lot of them actually have iron in there as well. Nitrogen is in there as well. It's another thing that kind of sneak into the regimen a little bit without really knowing about it. But yeah, CalMag, you guys use it too, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, calcium and magnesium.
Yep.
Because that's again, being a person on the internet, you get a lot of flack in the chat periodically. So when you just keep using the word CalMag like it's a one, people are like, oh, you know. So it's been trying to get better. Just like when I say cultivar instead of strain, and now for some reason when anyone says strain, it's just like, I don't know why. You did this to me, Chris. You did this to me.
Have you ever heard of a guy say, "Oh, you have CalMag deficiency"?
Yes.
It's all,
and that's where this
there's
draws
forums
back to.
on that. Yeah.
This is where this draws back to. So what I've been using over here on Twitch, somebody actually mentioned glacier rock dust. There's a lot of like natural things that are really affordable. I've been like not trying to use cheap either, affordable, that are really good inputs. But the easiest thing for me was always just grabbing a bottle of CalMag, you know, and usually it would have more water than anything, but you know, military grade CalMag was quick in a pinch, and then you'd be running into issues, and that's always like yellowing. Oh, it must be CalMag, and it's just another thing where there's more to it. I think again, if you don't have the complete regimen and having your micros and your macros, you're going to notice the difference. A lot of times you'll see soil will be more forgiving versus like an inert media when it comes to calcium deficiencies. And myself switching into soil, I got a little too lax, and I cut back heavily on calcium and magnesium, and it's shown. So now I'm having to add it back in because I was like, oh, I'm good. It's all already in the mix, but I didn't supplement enough for it. Especially these are cultivars that went from a commercial setting in Rockwall to cocoa and synthetics to now an organic soil. So it's like I'm really like almost retraining these cultivars to take the inputs that they do versus the minimum amounts, but maximum EC. So calcium and magnesium are something I'm trying to implement more. It's not something I feel like is difficult. just like silica, you can get another bottle. But now we're looking at two more things I'm adding into my regimen, maybe 3 depending.
If you're going to get CalMag, got to make sure it's military grade CalMag, medical grade CalMag. No, just kidding. That's the joke there. Is, we'd say that for the extra strength. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, the CalMag isn't working. I'm still seeing calcium deficiency. Well, is it military grade? Medical grade? What are you using?
Yeah.
When you say it with a straight face, it's even better, bro. I'm telling you, man.
I know at first that's where I was like, oh, okay, yeah,
right.
Got up real early.
No, it's a very exciting conversation. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
Well, I think, with a lot of the stuff that we've tried to formulate with the Stash Blend too, it was more trying to find a variety of things that we can cut out the extra bags or bottles and be able to have it all in easy to access things in a similar way that it's obtainable to just grab a bottle or one other thing. But this would be, hey, replace 4 or 5 other additives that you're using. One thing that we didn't talk about is more of a macro would be the seaweed extract that we've got in there. So that's when I was a little initially like, but as everyone's like, screw potassium, but potassium is still a part of the mix. You still need to take care of it. And I think that's definitely a nice way to implement that in with multiple benefits. Have you guys ever used seaweed in your routine at all? When I first started, I did, but I quit for the longest time until this.
Yeah, when I used Blue Planet Nutrients, great lineup for those that are running synthetic, for the record. They have a seaweed bottle. I think it's like $20, $30, something like that. And I was using that for many, many years. It's good stuff for sure.
Yep, same here.
Yep.
I wasn't using Blue Planet. I was using Green Planet.
I had Green Planet too.
The affiliation, but
none at all.
Yeah, they have a kelp. They have a kelp extra bottle, and I was also using it as well. I just really, it's like I just want everyone to know though that you can grow great plants without a lot of this stuff too. Well, not all of it, granted, but it becomes so overwhelming, particularly for those that are just starting off, when you're trying to look at the things that you can be adding to your plants, and particularly if you're on a budget, man. That's the biggest thing, because if you wanted to buy an entire line of bottles, that's upwards of $300-400 for an affordable line. Well, maybe that's a little high, I guess, for an affordable line, but that's not out of the ballpark. We're talking at least $20 for a lot of these bottles, Canadian, right? These are beaver coins I'm working in here, so it's like it can be a bit overwhelming. But if you were to buy a base nutrient and like an MPK, maybe you're looking at a Grow or a Bloom. And maybe you're looking at something else. Again, it's like I love, but I love that we get to include the Stash Blend into this conversation, because you can now have 1 or 2, maybe 3 bottles at most, or base nutrients, and then have a $24 bag of everything else. And it's like, God, is that simple? There's no more need to go in and see bottle after bottle after bottle after bottle after bottle and think, oh my gosh, I need 6 more of these. No, you really don't. Yeah, you really don't. You just need 1 bag. And it's kind of crazy to me though that this is the first time this is being done. You know what I mean? Like, why? I understand there's more monetary gain in dividing every nutrient up and then giving it out that way, and then mentioning its benefits for a sales point. But it's kind of crazy to me that we're at a turning point where it's like, now you don't need those, so you don't. And I think it's important to mention that.
Yeah, I no longer have to buy silica, no longer have to buy a seaweed bottle, no longer have to buy a separate microbial inoculant, no longer have to separately buy a mycorrhizal fungi. All that is merged into one with Stash Blend. And yeah, got to give a shout out, it's ours. So we're here.
There's more.
Want to save people money for sure on that one. Yeah, I think that's a huge win, P. I'm glad you brought that one up.
It's important, and I'm so thankful to be behind it. And if you're watching this episode on YouTube later, if that's where you are, thank you. Don't forget we record on live every week on twitch.tv/fromthestash. Oh shit!
We
Forgot what you were gonna say.
twerking.
Yeah. Damn.
It's
Damn.
good though because I still had more to talk about. I had a couple more things. We got a little.
No,
more
I had
time.
something really good. Sorry. Go
I
ahead.
felt like it was
Go
going to
ahead.
get hot, but it stopped. It stopped. The energy just.
Go ahead. It's okay. It's okay.
It's good. It'll come back though. Maybe I'll spark it.
It will. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
My thing I want to talk about with potassium is a lot of people are always like the K. People will just say NPK and never even know what the hell they're saying. They're like, what's NPK? Or they'll read the numbers on the front of bottles, and I just feel like that's where knowing like what the plant function, like the role that these things play in the plant functions are very important. We've got videos where we talked about the essentials and or audio depending on where you're tuning into this, but essentially having something that's going to be more helping towards your photosynthesis and activating the enzymes is going to be great. And that's where the K or the potassium comes into play here. And with that, we've got the, not us only, a lot of people do it too, but that's the seaweed powder. And there's multiple people who are doing just straight it's like seaweed extract, but I feel like again I'm really tired of all the liquid nutrients. For storage is definitely a frustrating thing, but then also again for having it separated into multiple different bags or bottles or different areas. Like I have a whole rack area with just old random nutrients. Like I've got stuff from General Organics, I've got stuff from Humboldt Secret, House and Garden, Advanced, Dutch Pro, just random bits and pieces from over the years, you know what I'm saying? And it's because I've had to have these other little inputs to make sure that I had the full complete regimen. And if you don't, you're not going to get the best results. That's where you'll see somebody who's using the whole line of House and Garden or the whole line of Advanced, and they're crushing it. And it's not, and it's like, oh, somebody says they're not, but I'm telling you, I've been doing this long enough. I can see the difference. It may not be your favorite smoke, but it's still going to go. And it's done right because it's all the macros and all the micronutrients. That's really what it boils down to. And if you're not getting that, you're not going to get the best characteristic expressions from your cultivars. It's really, I mean, there's a lot of variables, of course, but I think that's where additives are a big thing that people overlook. You know, some of these are still going to go into your macros, but your micros is what's being overlooked for a lot of people. They're cool with just your NPK, but there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of additives. There's so many, and we definitely can't go over them all in this episode. I think we need to have a part 2 of this for sure, and go over some other additives that can be added, because the list is it's never ending. There's no way we can cover it on this episode.
On microbes at Betty's, just microbes. It's just beneficial bacteria. We did get Goblet to come out and have a conversation too on that. Like that dude is a madman with that. You've had, who did you have on your channel on Garden Talk that was blowing my mind with microbe talk?
Medically Fit was on there. He talked about a bunch of additives. As far as microbe talk, maybe
there's another dude,
Jeff Lowenfels.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Yes. So these are the kind of cats we need to go dig into that and have these conversations. I think that's really where it's we can have our opinions, we can reference white papers, things like that, but I really do feel like having somebody who that's all they do and that's their niche, that's really, really good to have, you know, versus generalists. I'm gonna call myself a generalist.
I totally agree. We could really dive in to each and every additive, you know, and because we didn't even, my favorite ones is the ones that are, you know, actively taking nitrogen out of the air, our bacterias, and converting it into usable nitrogen for the plant. Thieves, that's our nitrogen.
We put these little thieves in our bags. Pretty good.
It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool when you start to break this stuff down. And these are things that I had no idea of before we got started. So before we started getting Stash Blend on the rise, and someone on the YouTube chat was like, ICP going organic after this.
ICP.
And that kind of ICP, that's where my Bigelow over here was telling me that, you know, he's as the same conversation with the tent. I probably will. I probably will go organic someday because of its simplicity. I'm just not there yet, man, because I just made it easier with this Stash Blend. Boom. Sorry, one more time. But great conversation, guys. That was really well done. We really appreciate Wink for running the P's and Q's in the back. We really appreciate the chat for being here for this one. Go to stashblend.com if you want to participate in grabbing a bag of Stash Blend. This is the launch day today, so if you're watching this on YouTube, we're very excited, overwhelmingly, about the process and this product altogether. So stashblend.com. Go to fromthestash.com if you want to check out latest merch, news, posts, all the latest. Wink, thank you so much. Wink, Twitch, don't go anywhere. You know we're doing this all day. This is 4 hours
YouTube.
long.
We're live on both
or YouTube.
platforms.
You're right.
If you're watching
we never do that.
If you watch this replay or listening to it somewhere, that must suck. because you weren't here.
Yeah, you missed
Like,
it. How did you miss it?
Much love to you. I hope your day gets better after that feeling of like, oh,
Jeez,
FOMO.
that's harsh.
You know, it sucks, man. It sucks. I feel bad.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Twitch,
Yeah.
don't go anywhere. YouTube, stick around.